One that came in to us, I'll get it started with a question that was sent in to us already, was basically, I know the application for Zulu is later this month. Should I do the guided or standard? Here's what I tell everyone in this situation. Your advantage is to sign up for the guided application right now. And there's still quite a bit of time between now and when the guided application starts. If you'll notice on our calendar that the guided application starts after the application deadline for Zulu Platoon. That's okay. That's what it's for. It is to help you get into Zulu Platoon. And if you sign up for it, basically what we're going to do is we're going to give you the resources that you need to start working on the application either way. Whether you sign up for guided application or the standard, we're going to give you the resources you need to do well at this. In the interim, between now and when the guided application starts, I encourage everyone, even if you're signed up for guided application, to start working on this stuff on your own. At least start learning the basics, getting familiar with things like JavaScript, and learning the basics of what you need to know, because it very well may be that you complete your application before guided application even starts, in which case, awesome. You can still attend guided application if you want, just to learn what learn what you didn't learn already, and use that as a tool to kind of prep you for what is to come. So I encourage people to sign up for a guided application because there's no harm in it. It's a free program that we offer. It's an assistance to get into the program. And even if you're working on it on your own, you're going to be able to ask questions of an instructor, other students, things like that. So guided application is hugely beneficial. If you can sign up for that, I encourage you to do so. The next question we got sent in, here it is. I'll just read it to you. I am a veteran, but I heard that my dependents can attend Code Platoon. Is that true? If so, is there a special application they need to complete? Is he eligible for scholarships? Yes, no, yes. That's how we answer that. Yes, dependents. So if you're a spouse of either an active duty military member or a veteran, or you're a child. Now, this is something that is new to Code Platoon. We just started. Children of military members and veterans can attend Code Platoon. No, they do not need to fill out a special application. Everyone goes through the same application process. The only difference we have is for SkillBridge students. If you're still active duty and you're going to go into SkillBridge, you have a little bit of an added step. The application process is the same, but you have an extra step of getting command approval. And that's the only difference. But to answer that last question, eligibility for scholarships, also yes. We have a scholarship eligibility page. In fact, we have a page on scholarships. We can link here in a few minutes in the chat. And you can check your eligibility. But yes, we have scholarships for spouses. We have scholarships for military families. Just about every demographic who can attend Code Platoon, we have scholarships that fit that demographic. So yes, please, I encourage people who fit into those demographics to please apply for Code Platoon and talk to me about that. Let's see, next question. What is the guided application exactly? Is it a class? Why does it happen after your application deadline? So it is a class. It is it's a more casual class than our actual cohort. So when you enter a cohort at Code Platoon, you're going to be, immersed all day, every day, or in the evening and weekend case, you're going to be meeting, taking live classes. These are live classes, but it's a little more casual. You have instructors meeting a couple times a week. It might be are we doing three evenings a week? Jim's doing the heavy lifting behind the scenes, so he'll answer that. By the way, the scholarship information is in the chat now. If anybody wants to check out the scholarship page, please click on that. It's in the chat. 3 evenings a week for that guided application class. And basically, it's an instructor going through our prep material that helps prepare you for the coding exercises that you will do in order to get into the program and prepare you for the live technical assessment that comes as part of getting into the program. So it's an instructor-led version of what we've always done. We've always had the resources available to people to start on their journey, to start learning JavaScript, to start learning Python, to start learning the skills that are the base level of software engineering, to start learning these coding languages that are necessary to succeed. We've always provided these for free. We've always offered this to everyone who comes to Code Platoon and inquires. The difference with the guided application is that you have an instructor And his explicit purpose is to help you prepare for the application. So instead of you just doing all this on your own, you've got an instructor and you're doing this with other students who are probably asking the very same questions that you will be asking. So the guided application is a great resource. We highly encourage people to take advantage of that. We've had a lot of positive feedback about that. There are several students who will attend with you, but rest assured, these folks are asking the same questions you are. So don't be intimidated by the fact that there will be several other people taking this class. See that as a resource. See it as the fact that they will be doing the exact same thing you are and are in the same boat. You can see the link to guided application here in the comments as well. So if you click on the chat, we've got a couple of resources shared with everybody already. So yeah, please. And why does it happen after the deadline? That's a great question. Basically, we came up with this as a way to help people who came to us late in the game. Again, we're giving you the resources right now. If you come to us right now, you've got a couple of weeks before the deadline to the cohort itself, the application deadline. So we're giving you the resources to start working on this on your own. But if you were to come to us like a day or a couple of days before the deadline, there's no way you would have time to get through all that and get into the cohort. So we offered this after that deadline as a way of addressing that. For folks who came late, didn't know about Code Platoon until the last minute, and they want to take advantage of it and come to Code Platoon. That's why it happens after the deadline. So it's another way of, it's just another means of getting into the program. We're trying to make this as accessible as possible to everyone. And it does happen right before the start of Zulu. So, it's everything's happening fast, no doubt about it. But we've had several students successfully do exactly this. So it's a viable option. If you're coming to us right now, again, you're well ahead of the game, and we want you to start taking advantage of the resources now. Don't just wait for the guided application. Yes, sign up for it, but don't wait until then to start doing something. Start taking advantage of Intro to Coding and our Python resources, JavaScript resources, all these things. Start taking advantage of that now. Let's see. Can I try the standard application and revert to guided? That's why I suggest yes. I mean, the answer is absolutely yes. This is just another means of applying. You can apply multiple times to Code Platoon. This again is something we've always done. If you apply and the instructor says, "Hey, you're not quite there. We want you to work on X, Y, and Z," then go and work on X, Y, and Z and bring it back and reapply. There are no negative points at Code Platoon. You don't get minus points for applying multiple times. So you can apply multiple ways. Absolutely. We are offering this as another means of getting to the same place. So it's not that we're changing anything. It's just that we're opening up other roads to doing the same thing. If you complete the guided application program, you are virtually guaranteed a spot in one of our, if you do everything that the instructors tell you, and that's the nice thing about this guided application, you're working with instructors who are deeply familiar with both software engineering and Code Platoon. So if you're going through a guided application, you're going to, work right into exactly what they want you to do. So it's kind of almost like a cheat code. They're telling you exactly what you need to know to do well in this program. So again, I encourage people to sign up for that guided application. Let's see. Do we have any questions from anyone who has joined us? I see a few people who have joined us, so I will give a pause for a minute. And if you want to come off your mic or off mute, you can ask that way, or you can type it in the chat. It is up to you. Again, I like to keep it casual.
Hi, Greg. I just want to go over this. I'm not sure if you mentioned it already, but
yeah.
So you were discussing the guided application, and then the deadline for Zulu, I believe, is November 24th. Is the guided application starting before the deadline or after?
It is after, and that is okay. So don't feel like you're missing out on that cohort just because it's after. So yes, it is afterwards, but it is still for that same cohort.
Okay. I just want to be very clear. I don't want to miss the deadline, Greg.
No, and that's fair, and I appreciate the question. That's, that's what I'm here for, is to kind of clarify some of those things. So yeah, absolutely. And again, you've got time between
Okay.
now and the deadline to try and work on it on your own. But if you want to do the guided application, yeah, you're still in line to take part in Zulu Platoon for sure. Again, that's what it's for. That's the explicit purpose of our guided application. So and we're going to be doing that as far as I understand, we're going to be doing that from now on. So every full-time immersive cohort that you see listed, there will be a guided application component to that prior. We're not always going to have it on the evening and weekends program, because that's a lot to do, but sometimes they will line up. So even if you're planning for a cohort down the road, I encourage you to go through the guided application anyway, because it's only going to help. It's just more learning and more instruction on the topics you need to know. So it's hugely helpful all the way around. What other question? I just saw somebody else join us. So just to reiterate, this is a very casual Q&A session. If you have questions, you can feel free to type them in the chat, and you can also come off mute and ask them however you want. We're here to answer questions. We do have a couple of questions. Let's see. If I am interested in the next evening and weekend session, can I do the guided application? Yes, you can. Just be aware of the timing, because again, we're not going to have a guided application specific to that cohort, but you can take part in the one now and prepare for that one down the road. Just be aware, and this is something you might want to talk to me one-on-one about at some point, but be aware that these are perishable skills, right? I use the analogy of language all the time. I think language is a great analogy, because if you start learning another language, let's say you start learning Spanish and you learn how to say hello, how are you, my name is, and a couple of sentences, if you don't use that for the next 6 months and then you try to use it again, it could very well be lost. So keep at it and be aware of the timing. If you're going to go through the guided application and then do a cohort many months later, be aware that these are perishable skills, especially if you're not capitalizing on them right away, if that makes sense. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
I am pretty interested in, I'm really interested in doing this, like pursuing this. But I know that there's a possibility of failure. There's always a possibility of failure with everything that we try. So I just want to know how to best prepare for a boot camp, like a coding boot camp, especially for somebody personally. I am just getting started, and where I'm starting is with Python. So how can I best prepare, especially in the case that I'm pursuing it for, I don't think it's Zulu, it's the one that starts June 2nd.
June 2nd would be Avenger Platoon, I believe.
That's the one.
So yeah. So, well, first of all, I'd say if you're preparing for the June 2nd cohort, you're in a great place, right? Because you have plenty of time to prepare. The second thing I would say, in terms of getting into Code Platoon, we've got this down to the point where our instructors are very knowledgeable about what it takes to be successful. So first of all, the first thing I would say is just upfront, trusting the instructors. And if they're telling you, in other words, if you go through the application process and an instructor says, thumbs up, you are where you want to be, trust them. Trust that they know it. And the reason I say that is because we do have a lot of people who get to that point of day one of that cohort and they say, I don't know if I'm ready for this, right? Because it's so new and so different. You're in good company if that's the case. You're in very good company, because a lot of people are in that same position and they're skeptical of, how am I going to prepare? So the first thing is to trust the instructors and do what they're telling you to do. And that starts now. It starts with preparing for the application. It starts by going through these free programs that we have. So Intro to Coding, or using the Python resources. Once you get into the program, so once you complete the application, you submit the exercises, you submit a complete application, that instructor is going to tell you, yay or nay. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, if they say no, that's okay. You can redo what you need to do and resubmit. And those folks are almost always accepted. The people who receive feedback and adjust based on that feedback nearly always get into the program. So, and once you get to that point, you're accepted the program, the instructors are going to give you everything you need to know to be successful from that point forward. So there will be more work in between when you're accepted and when the actual cohort starts. This is not a situation where you apply and get accepted and we wave at you and say, hey, you're accepted, we'll see you in June. No. We're going to give you everything you need between when you're accepted and when you start that cohort. We're going to give you everything you need to be as successful as possible. So yeah, we're going to feed you just probably more than you want, to be honest, because there's so much to learn there, and there's no end of what you can learn in the world of software engineering, even in the program. And you'll see this. You're going to get into the program and you're going to say, there's too much. There's just so much to learn. So you have to kind of pick and choose. But at any rate, we're going to give you everything you need to be successful. The first steps start now, though. As long as you're getting into that free material. And by the way, and for everybody else's edification, understand everything we do is available on YouTube. It's all, go to YouTube, Code Platoon's YouTube page and start looking around. You will see thousands of hours of material that you can use as free resources. So we offer extensive resources to help you on any of the subjects that we're covering. Does that answer your question? Okay, good. But please, and I'll tell everybody this, and I'll add my email here in a few minutes. Please don't hesitate to email me. And if you want to set up a time to talk one-on-one, we can do that. Some of you I've already spoken with one-on-one, but we can absolutely do that again. That's what I'm here for. So I'm happy to have more in-depth conversations outside of this. But a couple other questions came in. Let's see. Yeah, you can still attend, as reminded here. You can attend the winter guided application even if you're not attending until Avenger Platoon. Feel free to attend both, right? We'll have another guided application. You can go through both. And that way, because you're asking about being prepared, and boy, there's no harm in doing both, right? Doing more is better in general. The more time you spend doing this, the more time you're immersed in this, the more familiar it will be and the more natural it will be. So attend the winter guided application and then go again in the one before Avenger. There's nothing wrong with doing that. And you could complete your application. And there's something else to consider too. We do accept applications well ahead of time. So if you were to go through the guided application for Zulu, the December guided application, you could submit for Avenger, be accepted, and you're in, right? You're in, and we can accept you and start preparing for Avenger Platoon in June. Let's see here. Yeah, and it bears repeating here. We're a nonprofit organization. We're about starting your career. Our goal is to make sure you get where you need to. We measure success based on you starting your career, not just you coming to the school. We don't measure success based on number of students coming to our school, right? We measure it based on you launching your career. And so we're going to give you all the help we possibly can between now and that point, and even after that. Our career services extends basically forever. So, and I'm here to be, your guide for that. So don't hesitate to ask the questions. Any other questions at the particular moment? Anything at all?
Can we talk a little bit about the schedule as far as like the hours, like start time and end time for classroom time?
Yeah, absolutely. The short answer is a lot. You're gonna have a lot of hours. The longer answer is our immersive platoon is, we tell people to expect 10 to 12 hour days, Monday through Friday. It's long days of a lot of practical application. So classes typically start, and these are live cohorts, by the way. So this isn't like college where, you log on when you can and do the coursework when you can. 8:30 a.m. Central Time, Monday through Fridays, are immersive cohorts. You're starting generally with introduction to whatever the topic is for that particular day. You are then immediately after that block of instruction, you're immediately diving into the practical application of that material. So it's not 10 hours of sitting and listening to a lecture. It's probably more like an hour of listening to a new block of instruction and then immediately launching into practical application thereof. Classes typically end 5:30. After that, for the next couple of hours following that are what we call instructor time. And that is where you can set aside time to meet with instructors one-on-one, TAs one-on-one. We have several instructors full-time, and then we also have TAs who help. Also, we have mentors. Code Platoon, as a true nonprofit, since I've been here for 5 years, I get a lot of questions about, how limited are your seats? Something you understand about Code Platoon is that we will always try to keep the instructor to student ratio as low as possible. So even if we have an influx of students, and we saw this during COVID, we see an influx of students, we add instructors. We add the instructors necessary to make sure that instructor to student ratio doesn't change. It doesn't go away, right? We don't want to just have 30 extra students and keep the instructors the same, because that's unfair to the students. So we're going to change along with that. And that means that we're going to have the instructors to help you one-on-one as you need. So that's kind of the basic outline. Were you asking about the immersive program? I guess I should ask that first.
Yes, I was asking about the immersive program. I got to get on a train and then be there all day, and then figure out what time I need to get back on that train. That's all.
Sure. No, and that's fair. And yeah, and I think we spoke on the phone, right? We it's downtown Chicago. And so I think about where it is, but it's easily accessible by the metro. And we have, I'd say right now, a little bit less than a third of our students are probably in person. So you're going to have a pretty cool, tight-knit little group, depending on the cohort of who attends in person with you. But I think it offers a great opportunity to work in the classroom and work right alongside people. I think in person is great. I know that most people just can't do it. It's just not feasible given a lot of different factors. But if you can, it's great. But yeah, plan on 10 to 12-hour days. Most of your life is going to be dedicated to this. The nice thing, for the record, about working here at Code Platoon, something I've enjoyed for the last 5 years, is that when I tell people in the military community 10 to 12-hour days, they just kind of go, okay. It's like, all right, yeah. So it's like work then, it's just normal, and it doesn't phase people. And I think people outside of the military are like, what now? 10 to 12-hour days? That's crazy. So at any rate, plan on that. There will be shorter days than 10 to 12 hours, of course, but one of the first things that the executive director will ask you when you join the welcome call, when you're first welcomed into a cohort, one of the first things he'll say is, are you ready to give up your life for the next 3.5 months? Because that's mostly what it's going to be. And of course, that's, of course you can see your kids and things like that. We're not saying that, you're going to be sequestered for 3.5 months, but it is intense and you're going to learn a lot. So be prepared for that. And we want to be upfront about it.
That's good. That's good to know. Thanks, Greg.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see here. Are your instructors good? Will I relate to them? So our head instructor right now spent several years I don't know exactly how many Adam spent in the software engineering world, but he has pretty extensive experience in the software engineering world. And he's been with us for several years now. Great guy, great instructor, very knowledgeable about all the things that you'll be learning. Francisco is another one of our instructors, former Marine instructor, very great at what he does and relating to, especially Marines. I mean, if I've got any Marines on this call, you'll love Francisco. But even if you're not a Marine, you'll love Francisco. He's fantastic. Yes, very relatable. They're very solid at teaching, first and foremost, about how to convey complex information to folks that are brand new to this. And they've got extensive experience. Our Francisco was a Code Platoon graduate, for the record, and Adam was not, but he has a lot of experience in the software engineering world. So we've kind of got both of those bases covered, which I think is good. I don't think you want all Code Platoon graduates, but I don't think you'd want no Code Platoon graduates being involved in the process either. So we've got a great balance of instructors, and that's just our two primary instructors. We have others on top of that as well. As shared in the chat, we've got information on our outcomes, what student outcomes are. We are very transparent with our numbers. We try to keep everything out in the open about what to expect in light of that. If you want more detail, like a breakdown of outcomes, like what makes people successful, what leads to people doing better than others, I'm happy to have that conversation one-on-one. And talk about your specific background and your situation, because there are a few factors that will change your outcomes, and a lot of that, more than anything, has to do with your flexibility. What are you willing to do after the program is over? If you're in Chicago, or you're willing to come to Chicago upon graduation, you might have opportunities that people outside of that wouldn't have. But conversely, if you're in a big city somewhere else, you're going to have opportunities that they don't here in Chicago. So there's a number of factors that go into outcomes, and I'm happy to talk more about that with anybody who has any questions. Let's see, any questions that I missed?
I have two questions.
Yeah, please.
The first one piggybacks off of what you just talked about.
Mhm.
With the career opportunities, do y'all focus primarily on like long-term employment, or is there a mix between long-term and
Like
it is right
contract,
there.
like
Well,
contract, like
yes, thank
contract or
you.
gig work or
Thank
something.
you. Thank you.
I kind of knew where you were getting at. That's all good. It's all good. So primarily long-term, I mean, our goal is to start your career, right? And some of that comes down to the individual. What is the individual after? We want them to end up in a place where they belong, right? A cultural fit, as that's important as well. But we're primarily focused on launching a career. So if an individual wants to go and seek out contract work or gig work or something like that, by all means, the career services team will work with that person. But we're also working, I call it a bottom up and top down approach. So the bottom up, what's at the center of the career services focus? You're at the center, right? You're the focus. So they're going to work with you as the individual, and they're going to work with you to develop a plan to start your career. That might look different than the other person who's right next to you, right? You're in a different city, you have different needs, so on and so forth. They're going to work with you to make sure that that plan makes sense within that construct. And that's from the bottom up. We're also working on things like resume prep, interview prep, making sure you have the skills necessary to do this path, right? So that's from the bottom. But from the top down, we're also working to develop relationships with partner companies. So we're working with different companies. We just had our annual event in Chicago where several companies came and joined us, and we got to see all of the graduates who these companies have hired. Companies like Travelers Insurance have hired a lot of our graduates. Motorola Solutions has hired a lot of our graduates. Some really good companies have hired. Accenture is another one that's worthy of mention here, because for various reasons, but these companies have hired numerous graduates of ours. So we're working to constantly develop those relationships to have a place where people know, hey, Code Platoon is a solid organization and we can trust who comes out of that. So we're working all of those and taking that career services question very seriously. But we're never going to say, well, I don't care what you want to do, right? That it matters a great deal what it is that you have in mind. And that even goes into the area that you want to choose. So we're a full stack school, right? The idea is to make you a full stack software engineer. At some point, everyone specializes in either front end or back end. Very rarely do you have this, complete full stack everything person. So at some point, you're going to say, oh, I'm really drawn to front end development. Cool. Well, that changes how we're looking at jobs and careers and what you're doing for your final projects and things you're focusing on. For a quick note on that, I encourage everyone to go and look on our YouTube page for our graduation videos. I think our most recent graduation videos is X-ray Platoon. So if you Google Code Platoon X-ray graduation, you're going to see students debut their final projects, and you're going to get to see what it is you're working towards. And you'll see that on a team of a few people, this person worked on this aspect of the project. This person worked on this aspect. So you'll see like, oh, this person kind of wants to go into that direction. So in other words, all of that comes into play when you're going down that career path of what am I looking for? What do I want to do? All of that is taken into consideration.
Okay, thank you for that. And the other question is a follow-up for the immersive courses. Is there flexibility in those courses for those who want to be hands-on but may have things that come up every now and then?
Yes. Short answer is yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Keep in mind, the demographic we serve is the military community, right? So it is inevitable that in every cohort we have somebody who's in the National Guard or reserves. Well, what does that mean? That means that they're going to have some kind of duty come up in a 3.5 month period, and we have to be respectful of that. We have a certain number of absences you can have. Now, we encourage people to, obviously maximize your time at Code Platoon, but given this demographic, we're also very realistic, right? We know that people are going to have VA medical appointments. I am the first to tell you, changing VA medical appointments is terrible. So you don't want to try to do that. So if you've got a VA medical appointment, by all means, go to that appointment, right? And yes, we're flexible in light of that. And we'll go over all of those things in due time of what are the allowable number of absences and things like that. But a lot of that comes down to you as the individual maximizing your time here. Yes, there are certain requirements that you'll have to meet, but we also don't want people missing out on certain things just from a practical perspective. So in other words, can you miss a certain number of days? Yes, but I don't want you missing this important material that we're covering on certain days, right? Try to be there as much as possible, obviously. So, but yeah, we're flexible in light of that. And like I said, we have to be, because inevitably we have Guard and Reserve students who are going to miss a Friday. They're going to miss, they're not going to be able to work on things on certain weekends and things like that. So.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. And again, VA appointments, we get it. It's a thing, right? I had to change an appointment recently and it bumped it back like 4 months. I was like, 4 months? Really? Okay. That seems a bit extreme, but here we are. Any other questions? Any other questions? If not, like I said, we keep this kind of short, sweet. We did add the Get Started page that was just shared here in the comment section. That's a great place to check if you're new to this whole process. Click on that link and it's kind of outlined some of that. I'm going to put, let's see, my email. Because again, I am here. Whoops, I think I did that to just one person. Of course. There we go. My email's in the chat for anybody who wants to set up either one-on-one or just email. I'm super flexible on that. How you want to ask questions. I'll answer quickly via email, or we can set up a time to chat. But otherwise, if nobody has any more questions, going once, going twice. All right. Well, thanks to all for joining us today. And again, my email is in the chat, greg@codeplatoon.org. If we happen to be sharing this on YouTube and you come across this video and there is no chat, greg@codeplatoon.org. Please email me anytime, or info@codeplatoon.org. Goes to the same place. I am happy to answer your questions and be a resource for you moving forward. So thanks everyone for joining us. Another episode of Coffee and Code Platoon.